They absolutely deserved it.
Oh, without a doubt.
Watch out, the FSU fans say Jacksonville's not even a state. I'm like, bro, it's not even. They're not even Jacksonville's team.
They're not even in Jacksonville, Florida. They're in Jacksonville, Alabama, which is the less important Jacksonville.
Literally FSU in a like.
That was so tough.
No.
Dude, it was great. I watched the replay of it literally like.
The guy proposing.
Taylor, just make sure we do a little bit of
Hello everyone and welcome back to Nighttime. We have a great show planned for you guys today. We're going to give you some UCF recap against Bethune-Cookman, and we're going to talk about our most impressive and disappointing teams this past week of college football and give our primetime picks at the end, so stay tuned.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back. Okay, always locked in, now I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.
Welcome back to Nighttime, everybody. We had a huge game against BCU this past week, Bethune-Cookman University, winning 63-14. And I also have Noah Kemper as our guest analyst to talk about the game. Noah, how are you feeling today, buddy?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on the show.
Awesome. Thank you, man. So we were up 14-7 after the first quarter. Bethune-Cookman was really hanging in that football game, but then we explode for 21 points in the second quarter to be up 35-7 at halftime, and then we put up another 28 points in the second half to win 63-14 after allowing another score. Taylor, what were some of the things that you saw in this past game that really exploded UCF onto the scene?
Yeah, I think we had a great show out on both sides of the ball, and we talked about it last week. This was a great opportunity to get players that have not yet been involved on the field, and I think everyone played a tremendous role in really helping out this team. We had a great performance. I mean, we put up 63 points, and there was players that didn't even play the second half of the game. We let so many other people have the opportunity, and I think defensive line really stepped up, and I'm looking forward to more momentum leading into the rest of the season from our defense.
We did have a great performance this week, Taylor, as a whole entire team, but there were some specific players that even had some standout performances, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Who did you think had a standout performance on the offensive side of the ball?
So I know I picked him last week, and I know that he's from Northwestern. I just have to put that out there. But I have to go with Isaiah Bowser. He is a great running back for this UCF football team. I think he's exactly what we needed for this season. He ran for 4 touchdowns, and he's only the 4th Knight to ever do this, and he did it all in the first half. He didn't even play the second half of the football game. I think that he is a great aspect and a great prospect for this team, and I think that he's like Dylan's sidekick at this point now. Who was your offensive player?
I have to throw out Ryan O'Keefe in there. I mean, we had Jalen Robinson show out last week, and now we have Ryan O'Keefe showing out this week. I mean, Jalen Robinson was kind of our decoy this past week. And then Ryan O'Keefe had 8 catches, 110 yards, but no touchdowns. Isaiah Bowser was the one that really pounded it on the goal line, but Ryan O'Keefe was the one in the first half, the one that got us to the end zone. 8 catches, 110 yards. He's great after the catch, catching bubble passes, bubble screens, and just getting them out in open space. That's what these UCF receivers do best. Jalen Robinson, Brandon Johnson, and Ryan O'Keefe. That's what they do best, and Ryan O'Keefe is the one that definitely showed out this week, Taylor.
Yeah, Noah, what did you think about the offense this past week?
The offense this past week was very efficient. I'm very glad that we're finally we put together 4 quarters of good football. That first quarter, that first drive was kind of shaky, but besides that, our offense was just a well-oiled machine. Dylan Gabriel didn't make any mistakes, which was great considering the amount of mistakes that he had last week. But now we have a lot of efficiency, and it's a lot of momentum going into the Louisville game this week.
Yeah, so moving on to the other side of the ball, I think we saw great things from the defense, and we talked about this is what we needed to see. My personal defensive player of the week, I could pull a U from last week and talk about the whole team, but I'm going to go off paper. It's going to be Bullard. He had 7 tackles, 6 of those are solo tackles. I think that he did a great job of rushing the passer and really getting up on that O-line. I think that he's a good player for this defensive team, and I think that he really shows out when he needs to, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he'll possibly do against Louisville this next week. Noah, what did you think about our defensive players this past week?
I definitely think they stepped it up more, applying the pressure more. Big Cat was definitely always a great addition to this team. As everyone, the secondary did look much better, but they still need improvement as they will face a much improved Louisville team. But overall, I felt like getting back into the things, they definitely looked more comfortable.
No, for sure. No, you're absolutely correct. The secondary is definitely where we need to improve on this next week for Louisville. I mean, we're still playing 5-7 yards off, playing with young corners, just allowing easy throwing completions. We're even letting Bethune-Cookman drive down the field. We were definitely letting him drive down the field that first quarter. But a specific defensive player that I had that honestly stood out this week, and it stood out the past 2 weeks, kind of went under the radar last week, is Dylan Lester. He had 3 pass deflections this past week, and he's honestly showing out as our #1 cornerback right now. And Dylan Lester was also the one that had the interception on Hank Bachmeier last week. Dylan Lester has 6 tackles, 4 pass deflections, and an interception in the first 2 games of the season. He's definitely showing out as our #1 corner, and honestly kind of looking like an all-conference corner right now, Taylor.
Yeah, I agree. And just touching on the defense again, we're going to talk about what we saw that we loved from this team this past week. And me personally, it was the defense. Yes, we do still need a lot of help in the backfield going on to the rest of the games. But I think our defensive line did a great job. This is the first time since 2014, back-to-back games with SMU and South Florida, that the defense held the rushing game under 300 yards and yards in total. So I think just continuing on, we have to keep the momentum going. We can't give up these big-time plays. They did a lot better on 3rd downs this past week, and they got off the field 3 and outs, Bethune-Cookman off the field. And once we get into conference play and these better teams, especially against Louisville and Cincinnati, we need to keep that up. What did you see that you really liked?
The thing that I saw that I really liked was, I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but was efficiency on offense. We played 4 quarters of great football. Dylan Gabriel maybe had one of the best games he's ever had as a UCF Knight. Granted, it was against Bethune-Cookman and only playing the first half, but he didn't make any mistakes. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. He went out there and did what he was supposed to do. Over 300 yards passing once again. But that's all the time that we have to talk about UCF for this segment, guys, and we're going to have to come back and talk about college football as a whole, the big slate of games this week going into week 3. We'll be right back.
Here's the story of a show creator who was gearing up to form a bigger crew.
One's a California guy,
A god of graphics.
one hosted Girls on Deck.
It's a story of a 4-year nightmare, which is finally coming to an end. Thank God.
And the new kid, a Packers lover.
Tampa forever. So then one day all these people work together to face a year unlike one that's ever been. And his group rebranded in Orlando. That's the way we all became HTFN. 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 That's the way we became HTFN.
That's blasphemy!
Hey guys, and welcome back to Nighttime. So moving into our next segment, we're going to give our whole perspective of college football this week. So looking back at week 2, we had impressive teams and we had some disappointing teams. So personally for me, my most impressive team this past week was the Stanford Cardinals beating USC at home. I think that they started off the game on a great foot by the kicker from USC being called for targeting and ejected from the game, and it just went downhill for USC from there. But I think that Stanford had a great show out with their quarterback having his first collegiate start, and he had 230 yards and 3 touchdowns. So I think when you make the home team fans boo the home team, I think you're doing a pretty good job. So that's why Stanford is my most impressive team of the week. Noah, how about you?
I had to go with Iowa. beating Iowa State 27-17. The defense was relentless throughout the entire game, forcing 3 interceptions, a forced fumble return for a touchdown, and 2 sacks. This defense was on top of the Cyclones, and if their defense can force turnovers like that every game, can get their team to win each week like that, their offense was held to 173 yards, and they still dominated because of the defense. And defense wins championships, so if they keep that up, they're looking good for the rest of the season.
Yeah, no, definitely. Iowa definitely looked good this past week, but my most impressive team this week had to be the Arkansas Razorbacks. Arkansas looked horrible week 1 against Rice. I don't know what was happening. I don't know if it was because they had a new coach, they had a brand new quarterback. I don't know what, but they came into this week against Texas. Yeah, Texas is back. Definitely not. And they ended up destroying Texas, especially with the run game. They were trying to pass the ball week 1 against Rice. Obviously wasn't working, so what happened? They went straight to the run game and dominated. Their front line dominated. They looked like a top 5 offensive line in the SEC after this past week. 4 different running backs had touchdowns for Arkansas, and they ended up winning the game 40-21. It was just a super impressive performance, and now Arkansas is ranked in the AP Top 25 poll for the first time in 3 years.
Kyle, piggybacking off of that, my most disappointing team is Horns Down, the Texas Longhorns this week. They got a great warm welcome to the SEC from Arkansas. If they want to really compete in the SEC, they cannot do what they did against the 6th team in the SEC West against the Razorbacks. They ran 333 yards against the Texas Longhorns, and the Texas quarterback was benched after only 15 pass attempts. It was just not a good game for them, and if they really want to show out and make a name for themselves in the SEC in the next around year and a half, they need to do better. Everyone's, like you said, talking about how Texas is back. Obviously not after this past game. So most disappointing for me was the Texas Longhorns. Noah, who was your most disappointing from this past week?
Oh, by far, it was Florida State. I mean, losing to an ASUN WAC team alone is just disappointing, but the way it happened was just, it was terrible. Florida State, on the last play of the game, gave up a 60-yard Hail Mary, and honestly, there was no effort put into that play. There was no effort put into that game. FSU played with no passion, and it was truly a disappointment. And to Jacksonville State, that is terrible. And not to mention, the O-line gives their quarterbacks 0 time to even have the ball in his hands before the defense is running at him. We don't want Mackenzie Milton ending up with another injury, so it was by far one of the most disappointing performances I've ever seen in Florida State.
Something else disappointing that happened during that game was that a Florida State player proposed to his girlfriend while Jackson State was celebrating in the background. So maybe let's not do that next time.
Yeah,
Kyle,
let's
continue on
definitely
with your most disappointing.
I have to keep on talking about FSU for a minute. Why do you not play prevent defense with 6 seconds left on your own 45-yard line? Why? You are down by 3. You do not have enough time to get another play and get out of bounds. Put 4 people in the end zone and don't allow the Hail Mary. And then they allowed him to catch the ball, and then they just saw him just run with it. They don't even try and tackle, and they were just in shock that he even caught the ball. FSU was definitely not ready to play this week, and that offensive line looks dreadful. I'm sorry that I said that Florida State looked impressive last week and looked like a top 25 team, because they look awful. I'd be lucky if they even win 4 games this season. But my most disappointing team definitely by far has to be USC. I mean, there was so much expectation for them coming into this season. I mean, they're on the same boat as Miami and Texas at this point. They get a good recruiting class, and then everybody thinks they're going to be good again. But they get out there and get thrashed by Stanford, 42-28. Keaton Slovis, some people thought of him as a Heisman candidate going into the season. He looked absolutely awful. The Stanford Cardinal have not been decent since 2012, ever since Andrew Luck went to the NFL. And we saw a couple years ago whenever UCF played Stanford, we beat them by 28 points. And now Stanford, they got a couple good recruiting classes together, a couple top 25 recruiting classes. But USC just did not look good this past week, and they ended up firing Clay Helton on Tuesday. And it's definitely deserved, because Clay Helton has not been good for the Trojans, and I think he's barely had a 500 record as their coach, and I don't think that's definitely not what the USC program intends for.
Well, hopefully all of our most disappointing teams will come back in week 3 of college football, and there's a lot of good games going into this week. So the game that I'm looking forward to the most is most likely an SEC championship preview against the Florida Gators taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide in Gainesville, Florida, in the Swamp. I think that if Florida is smart, they will not start Emory Jones, but we know that that's most likely and definitely what they're going to do. And I think they're going to struggle against this Alabama offense with their defense, with Bryce Young. But no matter what, I think it's going to be a great game. I think Alabama's definitely going to pull through at the end and really show out. But I think this is a type of college football game that really gets fans excited. And like I said, it's a preview of a championship game that you're getting at the beginning of the season. So I'm really looking forward to it. And that home field advantage for Florida, seeing like what it can do for them. So Noah, who are you looking forward to seeing this week?
I'm looking forward to seeing Ole Miss and Tulane. Do not sleep on this game. These are two offensive powerhouses that have put up points in the first 2 weeks. The Waves only fell to 5 to Oklahoma, and Ole Miss absolutely dominated. Both their quarterbacks have combined for 7 total touchdowns in 2 weeks. Press the over on this game, because this will be a shootout.
Yeah, that game is definitely going to be a shootout, Noah. But I mean, we'll give our predictions for the game later on, but Ole Miss's defense looks a whole lot better, and I think Ole Miss is actually a better team than Oklahoma at this point in time, looking at them the last 2 weeks. Matt Corral looks great. But the game I'm looking forward to most is actually a West Coast game. It's going to be a late game on Saturday night. It's a top 25 matchup, but not a lot of people are really looking at it. That's Arizona State versus BYU. BYU, off 2 great wins versus Arizona and Utah the past 2 weeks. Their offense looks amazing, top 25 in the country, one of the greatest passing games in all the country. Going against Herm Edwards in Arizona State, a top 10 defense in all of college football after the first 2 weeks, only allowing 12 points a game and 189 points a game. It's offense versus defense, power versus power. I mean, I'm kind of giving a hint to who I'm going to pick for this game, but Arizona State has a top 10 defense in the country, and defense wins championships. That's all I'm going to say about that. But also another game that's actually going to be really helpful and actually really big this week is the whiteout at Happy Valley. Nittany Lions versus going against Auburn. Auburn versus Penn State might be the most intriguing matchup of the week, especially since Alabama is far and above better than everyone else. I had to throw out Auburn and Penn State there for a second, Taylor. I just had to.
No, it's okay. And we're going to get all to those picks soon, and I will see why we're picking the teams that we're going to. But I think going into week 3, there's a bunch of teams we're looking forward to seeing. And not to mention the UCF-Louisville game, I'm really looking forward to seeing specific players kind of stand out against that game. Like Jean Baptiste, I think that he's going to be an all-star player and really help out this game against UCF. So what do you think, are you looking forward to seeing from this Louisville game with UCF?
I'm looking forward to seeing how UCF is going to stop the mobile QB of Malik Cunningham. We haven't really gone against a mobile QB all season. We haven't gone against one for the past last half of last season. I think the last time we went against a mobile quarterback was Desmond Ridder in the Cincinnati game. But, I mean, Malik Cunningham is definitely going to be the most mobile quarterback that we see all year, and I'm interested to see how Travis Williams and Gus Malzahn game plan against the mobile of Malik Cunningham.
That's very true, and we'll get to all of those picks coming up in our next segment, so we'll see you right after this commercial break.
Welcome to the HTF Hot Wings Challenge. One of you guys actually do hot sauce regularly?
No. It's like the least black thing I do.
Oh, wow, okay.
I say Johnny goes first on this one.
I agree.
Now, the Buccaneers are going to play the Washington football team.
That can't happen.
It will happen.
I'm terrified.
No, I really hate it.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. No. You're wrong. If it wasn't for Kanye jumping up on stage and doing the, I'm going to let you finish, but no one would know what it was.
Nitro's dump truck. And if you don't know what I'm talking about.
Why is Nitro thick?
I don't know how many squats I need to do to get up something like that, but I will do it.
Oh! Oh my God!
Baseball, obvious reasons. Babe Ruth, if you want to go currently. I feel like that's just a good thing.
He jumped off the wall to catch the home run. We made it through all the way to the end. Thank you for joining us.
I'm never doing this again.
It was rough.
Welcome back, everyone. It's time for everybody's favorite segment here on Nighttime, the prime time picks of the week. Last week, I went 3-1, predicted Oregon to beat Ohio State. That's still probably my greatest accomplishment so far this season. I mean, I like beating Taylor in anything possible.
Love that.
So, I mean, Taylor, what's the first game for us this week?
I think the first game for us is going to be Arizona State versus BYU, and I'm pulling out BYU winning 30-34. I think that they are fantastic on offense and defense. I think that they really make their opposing teams work. And I think BYU is really showing out this year, and I think that's why they're going to beat Arizona State. Noah, what about you?
I have to go for BYU as well. After getting their first win against Utah since 2009, BYU is proving why they deserve to be a Big 12 team. And I got BYU pulling it out 31-21.
Yeah, the difference in this game for BYU, which by the way, they're going to win 34-24. I mean, I'm already guaranteeing that. Jaron Hall, BYU's quarterback, filling in for Zach Wilson. He's definitely the best player that BYU has, and Arizona State has not played against that good of an offense, and BYU has a top 10 offense in the country, and they've gone against UNLV and an FCS team in Arizona State. That's the only reason why they have such a good defense. I'm sorry, Herm Edwards, but Jaron Hall is going to go out there and defeat you guys this week.
So we kind of touched on this game a little bit before commercial break, but Auburn and Penn State, it is the whiteout game. It's a really hostile environment. Few teams make it out alive, but I don't think it's going to be Auburn in this case. The past two games, they have totaled for around 60 points offensively, but I don't think that is going to happen. With Penn State, I think it is going to be Penn State's win 29-27. I think it's going to come down to a dramatic fashion like always during the whiteout game. It might come down to a field goal, but I'm going with Penn State.
Yeah, I can't go with Auburn in this game. Bo Nix has never looked good, especially in a hostile environment. Brand new coach at Auburn as well. I can't pick Auburn to win this game. I know they've scored 60 points in the first two games, like 60 points in each game, but there's no way that they're scoring 60 on the Nittany Lions. And Nittany Lions, they've already played Wisconsin, and they've already played good schools, and Auburn's played absolutely nobody. So they're going into a hostile environment for their first actual test of the season. And I think Penn State might actually blow out Auburn in this game, especially since the Nittany Lions offense looked better last week. I have to give it to Penn State. I'll go 35-21. Noah, what about you, man?
I also have to go with Penn State. As you've touched on earlier, Auburn has played nobody. Yes, they've dropped 60 plus, but they've played nobody. Penn State, on the other hand, has proved their defense is worthy with holding Wisconsin to just 10 points, proving themselves to be a valid team this year. And I think they're going to hold Auburn to only 13. I'm going 2013, Penn State.
All right, moving on to the game that I'm most looking forward to this week, Alabama versus Florida. I think that Bryce Young is really going to put a beating onto the Florida defense. I think if Anthony Richardson really pulls out for Florida, he would probably do great against Alabama, but that's not going to be the case with Emory Jones. I think when he is in, they're way more mistake prone, and I don't think that is what you need to do for Alabama, obviously. So I'm giving it to the Crimson Tide 38-20.
No, I also have Alabama winning this game too. Anthony Richardson is their only chance is Florida's only chance of winning this game. But I mean, Dan Mullen he doesn't put him in. He's so dedicated to the two quarterback system, and he's so stubborn and set on his own mindset of, I'm playing Emory Jones. I've said it from the beginning of the season, so I'm going to keep on doing it. Even though Anthony Richardson's the best football player on that team, they don't have him in near enough. So Alabama's going to end up outscoring Florida at the end of the day. That final score is going to be 42-21. It's actually going to be a blowout at the end of the day. Noah?
I also have to have Alabama. Why Emory Jones is starting, I don't know. I don't know if Dan Mullen just didn't watch the game last week when Anthony Richardson was put in, but he was slinging it 75 yards for a touchdown, running it for a 60-yard touchdown. Why he's not starting, I don't know. But again, Emory Jones, I feel like he will struggle against the Crimson Tide's defense, and eventually they will fall behind. So I am giving it to Alabama 42-31.
Florida is also reporting that Anthony Richardson actually has a strained hamstring. They've said it the past week they've limited him in practice, and he's actually a game time decision going into the game. So maybe that's a big reason why he's not set as the starter as of yet, but I still think he's going to have a big role in this Alabama game if they want any chance to win.
All right, so moving into our very own UCF Knights, they're taking on Louisville tomorrow night. I think that, like I said, if they want to play great against Louisville, they need to utilize some defensive players like Jean-Baptiste. He is a fast player, so he needs to get to their running back Mitchell and their quarterback Cunningham, especially if Cunningham decides to throw these mid-range passes down the field. I think that Louisville is going to go up early, honestly, and I think their defense for UCF is going to have to come back and fight. I think that UCF will pull through in the second half, and I'm going to go UCF 41-27.
Yeah, watching that Ole Miss versus Louisville game, week 1, that Louisville secondary is very bad, and they're not very athletic. So what do we have to counteract that? A great quarterback, a great passing game, and some of the most athletic receiving core in the whole entire country. I think UCF actually absolutely blows out Louisville, since we have so many athletes on the defensive side of the ball that can actually keep up with Malik Cunningham, like Jean-Baptiste, Eric Gilliard, Dylan Lester. We have so many athletes that can be able to spy him and not able to get him out in open space, and I think UCF pulls this one out 49-20. Noah.
I also have to go with UCF because UCF has one of the most balanced offenses I've seen in such a long time. Running it 15th in the country for passing yards, 17th in the country. It is unreal how Isaiah Bowser and Dylan Gabriel are just leading this offense. So you never know what there's going to throw at them. And I feel like in the second half, UCF will overwhelm Louisville, will turn it on, and will start to pull away. And I also have UCF winning it 42-24.
Well, Kyle, I'm really looking forward to the game tomorrow night. How about you?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the game. Just remember, guys, Friday night, not Saturday night. It's going to be at 8 o'clock. Go show out for your Knights. It's also a whiteout for the Knights away fans. So if you're going to the game, if you're going up to Louisville, Kentucky, or if you're sitting at home on your couch or going out to a bar or something, wear whiteout.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to it, and I think these players will show out great. Thank you guys for tuning in to KnightTime. We have a great show planned next week again, so thank you guys for watching, and have a great day, and go Knights.
Charge on.